This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance at Club 20 in Grand Junction. We are joined by Don Coram. He is a member of the Colorado House of Representatives. And so I'd like to speak with you about the challenges facing the Colorado budgeteers. It's hard to deny that Colorado voters can be a bit schizophrenic in how they vote. In 1992, they passed the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, which requires refunds if too much money comes in. But then in 2000, they passed Amendment 23, which mandates increases in the education budget. And so how do you all deal with that conflicting message?
You know, it is very conflicting, and, it's, let's just say it is what it is. And,
right.
And, we deal with it. We go through the budget process. The JBC works the committee, and we as legislators then decide how we're going to do that. There are certainly conflicts, but this was put together by the voters, and it requires the voters to change that.
But here's the question, though, because there have been and there can be fixes to situations that present themselves. As you know, back, I think it was in 2005, Referendum C passed, and that allowed, I'll call it an exemption to Tabor. It allowed the state to keep certain revenue beyond the Tabor cap for about 5 years. Times are good now, relatively speaking. Well, money's coming in, and so should we be looking at whether we need another Referendum C?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit about times are good, because we are talking about a tale of a state of three different tales on it, because we have the I-25, I-70 corridor, the Front Range, 25 miles on either side of I-25. We have the Eastern Plains, we have Western Colorado, and it's certainly, the economy is certainly not booming in those areas. So,
and I want to ask you about the economy, because again, you look at the numbers and they seem positive. In Colorado, I think the 5th strongest economy compared to other states. But then when you dig a little deeper, oil and gas obviously presents challenges with gas prices dropping. Agriculture is a little soft this year. And so, on the ground, in your district, what are you hearing and seeing?
Well, you say the oil and gas industry is doing well. Yes, it is doing very well on the privately owned lands of northeastern Colorado. The public lands of western Colorado, which we are 70% federal public lands. Drilling activity is nil. The population of western Colorado is certainly depleted. A lot of my constituents now, if they don't live in the Dakotas, they're certainly working there.
No, I've heard that. Alaska, Texas, wherever it may be. So the question becomes, should we look at Amendment 23 then? Because if we have Tabor preventing, for example, investment, I guess you could say, because of refunds that are required, maybe Amendment 23 needs to be amended, because that requires a huge amount of money to go into one element of the budget.
Yeah, it does require that, but I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room is that we passed Medicaid expansion, and that is going to consume our budget as far as I'm concerned. In 2017, Colorado has to start paying 10% of Medicaid costs. And, about in my district, more than 50% are Medicaid eligible. And Obamacare has certainly expanded that.
Right. But the question becomes, if these folks aren't on Medicaid, they're getting their medical care somewhere. And so that somewhere can become, and usually becomes, an emergency room. And who winds up paying the emergency room costs? You and I. And so, while I don't take away the challenge of that 10% when it kicks in, what is the economic balance and how does it come out? Because emergency room care is so expensive. And if you can get them to a primary care physician, they're not in the emergency room. And that's what arguably the Medicaid expansion hopes to do.
Well, and I think that's the plan, but the fact is we still end up paying both, whether because they're subsidized through the Medicaid program or they're using the emergency room.
But aren't emergency rooms so much more expensive? So wouldn't it be better to at least get them into primary care?
I agree if you can get into primary care, but frankly, we don't have an abundant amount of medical staff in Western Colorado.
And that's a very fair question.
And finding one that will take Medicare or even Medicaid, is very difficult. Personally, I was going through a situation. My doctor retired. My wife's doctor passed away. We didn't have a family doctor, and so we, and we went through the process of trying to find a doctor and trying to find a doctor that's taking new patients. In my home community of Montrose, in the last year or so, there's been like a dozen doctors leave town.
Which is a fine point and really does beg the question, because whether you support the Affordable Care Act, the expansion or not, more people will be accessing medical care. And so do we have here in Colorado, in Montrose, the ability to attract doctors? Because just like you said, doctors are leaving, aging population. What do we do on that front?
Well, I think it's very difficult to attract doctors. I mean, we're getting some doctors in, but most of them are being actually hired by the hospital to come in because they're setting up a private practice to take a patient that you're actually going to lose money on. That's not a great incentive to move to an area and set up a practice.
So is Colorado, your colleagues on the JBC and otherwise, are they starting to look towards 2017 when that 10% portion must be paid by the state? And does it increase to 20% after a while? I can't remember.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the exact date. But I mean, like we have to. There's no doubt about it, because that's going to consume our education dollars, our transportation dollars. And so that's the thing that we have to really just get
Let's
there.
talk about transportation. You're a member of the Transportation Committee in the House of Representatives. We look at roads throughout Colorado in disrepair. I mean, the stories are endless. And so there are discussions, Democrats and Republicans, about how can we fund infrastructure. Folks, even Club 20 recently passed a resolution in favor of increasing the gas tax.
Yeah, I'm aware.
What do you make of that?
I'm aware of that. I don't believe that in reality the voters will approve that. We had an issue a year ago increasing taxes for education, and it went down 2-1. Frankly, there's not a lot of appetite in my district for an increase, because the fear is that we pay the taxes, but the roads are all built in the metropolitan area.
And it's a fair point that how do rural areas, non-urban areas, get its fair share? At the same time, the gas tax has been constant since 1983. Inflation's gone up. People are driving hybrids and electric vehicles, and so not as much revenue is coming in. So is there a way to create a formula whereby, with a tax increase or not, every county gets its fair share, rural or urban?
And I think, there was an issue last year that I actually thought was probably a pretty good idea, and that's the transbonding. We have bonding now that's about to expire. We could rebond about $3 billion in interest savings.
Based on the gas tax.
Based on the gas tax.
Now,
gas tax would
Senator
pay back.
Baumgartner was a big proponent of that. The governor was not. Didn't make it through. So where do we go from here? I mean, do we look at vehicle miles traveled? Do we look at toll roads? Lots of challenges.
Well, I think the problem with toll roads is you're not going to get anybody that's going to want to build a toll road in a rural area.
I understand.
So, farm to market roads are very important. If we can't get our natural resources, raw materials, agricultural products to the Denver market, they're going to be hurting too. So.
His name is Don Coram. He is a member of the House of Representatives in Colorado. We are coming to you from Club 20. This is Charter Local Edition.